on writing my conference papers to different countries like in Thailand, like in Dar es Salaam and Kenya, one of the things that I usually emphasize if we are to speak of autism, one must speak about it's a neurodevelopmental condition that is characterized mainly by social interaction deficits, social communication deficits, and then the repetitive patterns of behavior. So when someone says a neurodevelopmental condition, someone that is watching us, you could be a mother, you could be a caretaker of a child with autism, understand that a neurodevelopmental condition is simply any disorder that affects the brain functionality. The word abnormal functionality isn't emphasized, but we say any malfunctioning of the brain. So this brings about symptoms like poor
Before we go to the
contact.
symptoms,
Yeah.
what are some of the causes of the brain malfunction?
Yeah, one of the causes of the brain malfunctioning, or usually in the developmental process, things like a breech delivery. Breech, I mean when the child presents with the legs first instead of the head. Second is jaundice during the perinatal stage. Perinatal meaning at the point of delivery. So jaundice means the yellowing. In Luganda, some people call it kamoli. So when there's yellowing of this child, he's put in an incubator, or it's an ultraviolet light that enables to provide that artificial womb condition for this child. 2, there is also maternal diabetes. All these are risk factors. We don't call them causes if we're handling autism. Why? Because the research shows that the causes for autism are not really documented as of now, but we base so much on the risk factors which attribute us to the leading factors for autism, etiology, or causes. So prenatal delivery, if I talk of low birth weight, talk of things like premature birth. So a mother should know that if a child is born before the gestation period has matured, that means before 9 months, it means there are certain brain developments that have not fully matured. And in doing so, if a child is exposed to the external environment, he or she can have damages or malfunctioning of the brain. And also, if I talk about alcoholism or toxicity, and the thing that usually embraces in different mothers is that if the uterine lining has not fully developed, this could mean like things like endometriosis, and then any damage that is being caused on the uterus that can bring about difficulties during birth, and then poor contraction of the uterus. So any factor that can affect brain functionality, especially during prenatal development or perinatal stage, these are factors that usually lead to malfunctioning of the brain, and then eventually causing symptoms that affect the child holistically.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Phil. But of course, could you please stress more on these risk factors that actually come in the pregnancy period? What are some of those major ones that you'd want our viewers to learn about tonight, especially those ones that mothers could prevent?
Yeah.
The most risk factors, the mothers as they're pregnant.
Yeah.
Focus on those.
Yeah, so during pregnancy, a mother should actually maintain the days for the antenatal care. Why? Because there are those things that the nurse or the midwife will teach the mother on things like nutrition, on things like posture during delivery, on things like maintaining the folic acid levels. So there are those factors that enable a mother to go through the stage of pregnancy before birth. And in doing so, we are enabling better development of the fetus. Because in embryonic development, we see that the fetus develops better if the conditions of the mother are suitable. Why? Because we regard a fetus as a parasite, meaning the fetus is only depending on the mother's nutrients or the mother's consumption that comes in. So if the mother doesn't attend the appropriate antenatal care during pregnancy, there are factors that will arise up. In autism, low folic acid won't bring about autism, but low amounts of folic acid bring about something we call spina bifida. But anything that is damaging the brain or the spinal cord, these are factors that bring about a malfunctioning of the brain. And as I say, that the documents of research about autism shows that any possible danger to the functioning of the brain, especially at the developmental period, is a potential risk factor for the child to be born with symptoms that relate to autism.
Thank you so much. And of course, for viewers who just joined us, we are still talking about autism. And we are still demystifying a few complexities. But before we go to the real signs and symptoms, what are some of the myths and misconceptions that these mothers in the community are facing, especially these ones who have autistic children? Give us like 4 and elaborate them with the experience that you've expounded before. Yes, please.
So one of the myths that different mothers have about autism is that usually I see cases whereby a parent is trying to abandon the mother, usually fathers, and it's because they be like, at our home, we don't give birth to such children. So that is not right. Why? Because it's not about the mother or the father, but as I say, that there are those factors that can lead to brain poor development, especially during the developmental period. So one of the myths is that they attribute autism to be witchcraft. 2, they attribute autism to be a curse, that the mother or the father has committed something before. And if you read more about something we call beyond suffering, it goes on to explain what are the Christian beliefs in disability. So as the family of Google TV, our aim is for enabling the gospel to reach out to the world and seeing that people live the best lives as we share the gospel of Christ. Now, John chapter 9, you see that the person that was blind, it wasn't because he or she had committed a sin. I can relate to this in a way that it is not that you get a child with autism because you're attributed to a certain sin that you committed. So it is usually in autism, in most families with children with autism, the mother can be like, no, maybe this man had a lot of issues before getting married with me, or the mother could blame herself for any other thing that she did. But the public should know that it's not about a curse, that is a myth, or a sin that was committed. Then 3, some parents think that having a child with autism is probably a means of getting wealth, or some members are saying that this child has been sacrificed or given as a potential sacrifice for wealth. Now that is a myth. Why? Because sometimes the challenge with diagnosis and assessment is that most families that reach out to therapists, and because the therapists are very few, awareness is low, it's because these families that attempt to reach out, they can reach out to the therapists that are, say, in Nakasero, in International Hospital of Kampala, and in some few organizations. So you find that the families that reach out to get the therapists to give them the care, it's a way that makes people think that probably autism is in families that are well-to-do or rich or wealthy, but that is a myth. It's not
What do you
about
think
that.
that myths and misconceptions are actually increasing in the bid for autism?
Yeah, the myths and conception, the myths are increasing mainly because the numbers of children with autism are increasing, and the number of therapists.
Give us a few statistics of the autism, especially focusing in Africa as a region.
1 in 52 children in Africa have autism, and such a statistic is more explained if we are to check on the statistical levels in Uganda. That 1 in 62.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so it's because of these increasing numbers that even the therapist load on handling these children is increasing day by day.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Phil. For viewers who just joined us, you're still live on Google Data Vision Health and Beauty program with me, Kamara Daniel. And of course, we want to once again say that you're on the right channel. Joining us does not actually empower you with Christian values and spirituality. However, we enrich your health and well-being. But of course, we'd want to say that your health is a priority, and that's why we're always here every Wednesday at 9 p.m. telling you about your health concerns, especially for those that have just joined us for the very first time. You can go ahead and visit our social media platforms, Burner X, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok. And of course, watch this program live and go ahead and put your comments and whatever you feel like about this program. It will be most welcome. And just like Mr. Philip, he's an occupational therapist and he's still discussing with us about autism. So far, we've looked into the risk factors, we've looked into the direct causes, but also what does it mean to have an autistic child at home. Now, Mr. Philip, you've emphasized the therapist in our hospitals and whatever, but before we go into that,
Yeah.
why do you think that the myths and misconceptions are increasing so much despite the awareness maybe about autism?
Yeah, it's because of the low information about autism, and also people not knowing that autism is a brain condition. It's a neurodevelopmental, meaning it affects a child during the developmental period mostly. Yeah, so the causes arise usually during that period from 0 to 2 years is when we can diagnose autism at 2, because we would have seen the or the discrepancies in development that can tell us, okay, now there is a brain malfunction.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, give us the diagnostic criteria. What did you guys base on to say, yes, Kamara has autism?
Yeah.
And why did you base on to say that Kamara is now healthy? And of course, as you test the diagnostic criteria, please go ahead and tell us if it is a if it is a communicable disease or if it is a non-communicable disease.
Okay. So about the diagnosis of autism, we use the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual 5, or the DSM-5. So it is a criteria that the clinical psychiatrists based in the United States of America came up with in association with therapists, so that we see what are the underlying factors and symptoms that can really outplay that this is autism. So it outlines that there are 3 criteria that we base on. The first one is a deficit in social communication and social interaction. So there is a series of symptoms along deficits of social communication and social interaction. Then the second is repeated patterns of behavior and restricted interests. So if I'm to go more about the first one, deficits in social communication and interaction, one of them is poor eye contact, problem with back and forth conversation, problem with initiating speech, problems with interacting with other people, problems with sharing gaze. Gaze, it means if I was talking to someone, someone could be looking down or looking aside. Now, all these are forms of gaze that you'll find in children with autism, that you could be talking to him or her, but is not looking at you direct. So,
at what age does that manifest?
Yeah, like I said, between 0 to 2 years, we leave a gap to see what are the possible symptoms that are rising up to align with the criteria for autism.
Okay.
So at 2 years is when we can now say, now this child is not having appropriate play with peers. Like social communication, social interaction also involves that sharing of play, interactive play, meaning the child won't be given toys and is in a particular corner playing alone, or he's given a ball and then the child is ever rolling the ball alone, not engaging with the friends. Yeah. Still on the criteria, the second one was repetitive and restricted patterns of behavior. And one of them is you may find a child trying to line up toys. Parents report that at home they're trying to line up sandals, shoes in the shoe rack. Others are trying to get different cups, putting them together. And most of them you find that they have particular interests that they want. There's a case that I studied. A child was always wanting a blue chair. Every time I come for the session, the child can't sit with me except I brought a blue chair. Why? That's a restricted interest. Mothers tell me at home the child just likes the blue brush. So if I'm to stock the next time I'm buying a toothbrush, it must be blue. Other mothers will tell
yes, that thing is true. I've just been watching some TikTok series about autism, and I've seen children.
Yes.
They're maybe in nutrition I may say they're addictive.
Yeah.
They're addicted to oranges, and they like yellow.
And they like yellow.
So the mother has to shop things that are yellowish in color for the child to eat them. That's a nice one. I think I've just related to what I've been watching.
Yeah.
Please go ahead and tell us some of those more important.
Yeah.
So that people can fully understand.
Then also with brushing teeth, the child, if the routine is made in the morning that we are brushing teeth at 8, never at any point should the brushing teeth turn to 9. Because these children have a challenge with adjustment to any routine. If you made lunch and it's to be eaten at midday, it will stick in his or her mind that at exactly midday I'm having my lunch. So what does this tell you? The restricted interest and failure to adjust to routines is a very critical component in diagnosing autism. Another one is usually preferably of a social companion or a pattern that is repeated. This could be if I'm playing with my sister. Mothers usually tell me that my child only likes to play with the elder sister. When she's not around, he's not going to play. So you find that it develops with time if the child is being left without therapy. And this can be very detrimental in the growth of a child. Why? Because a child ideally should learn how to play with any person in the environment, starting with the peers before the adults. Another thing that I could speak about in the criteria of diagnosis is poor eye contact. Yeah, so poor eye contact is a very clear sign in autism that if I'm talking to someone,
like
there is
me,
no,
for example.
Yes, I must look at a point that the eyes can see into the other person's eye. Yeah, so they have a problem with sustaining that eye contact for a long time. One of the ways that we gauge progress, or we see that now this child is improving, we use items like the Early Start Denver model. So it is a checklist that tries to outline the very first factors and how the child is developing from time and now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Philip. Mr. Philip is an occupational therapist and has been actually telling us lots of important information about autism. We've so far completed the telling factors about this important condition. And I wanted you to first clarify, is this communicable or it's non-communicable disease? I mean, can a child who has this disease, when they eat together on the same plate, because these are, when you're living with autistic children, there are many things that your child can be discriminated due to different things. Could you please highlight about that?
Autism is not a communicable disease. Why? Because it's a condition that arises due to poor brain development, especially both perinatal, postnatal, and then prenatal. So a communicable disease simply means that it could be through interaction, it could be through any form of association before the disease can be. It could be through air, but with autism, it's internal, it's in the brain. There is no way, if we say autism is communicable, then intelligence becomes communicable. Because these are factors that are internal in a person that they're only transferred to the other person, and it's the reason why genetics becomes a very critical component in autism. That a family that has got a child with autism, there is probability that there can be a child with autism in such a family. Why? Because it is now in the gene, in the genotype. Yeah. So it is not phenotypically expressed, but it is phenotypical, I mean the physical presence.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't say that, oh, okay, I like using my name. You can't say that Philip, by his look, he's autistic. We can't say that. But if I was holding my ears, say like if they increase the sound and I'm holding my ears, I'm running, I don't want to play with others, I would have displayed what we call autistic tendencies.
Please highlight about the use of the ears.
Yeah.
I see most of them touching the ears. A male talk like this, they touch their ears.
Yeah. So the next point in diagnosing autism is where I was moving to. It's called the sensory processing disorders.
Please go ahead.
So sensory processing disorders, these are simply disorders that involve poor or low response to stimulus that involves auditory, that is the ear, visual, that is the eye, tactile, that is touching. And in autism, you find that a child may have a challenge with visual fascination. For example, if the lights are many, the child will try to avoid them. Or two, some of them give a side look. They give a side look, especially in the morning. If you're to take them for vitamin D for sunshine, they may give a side look to the where the rays are coming from. Some of them, when they are watching a movie or watching anything on the screen, they try to bring it so close to see what is exactly on the screen, but it's just because of the visual fascination. Some of them, during play, you may find them rotating to corners where there are more brighter lights, more brighter colors. Yeah. So visual fascination is one of them. Then the second one is auditory. Auditory, I mean, there are those that seek sounds. If you played a song of a child to listen, this child, if you increase the sound, some of them will either gravitate where the loud sound is, but some of them will close their ears trying to avoid that sound. Yeah. So one of the things that we do in treatment, we do what we call sensory integration techniques.
Okay.
So sensory integration techniques are modifications that we use, like we can bring a light that keeps changing colors and as the child is following a green color or a red, I usually give an example of in a show, yeah, someone could be presenting, say maybe in a cricket oval, someone could be presenting, say in Serena. There are those lights that keep changing colors. Yeah.
Even you have them here in church.
Yeah. So even at church, there are those lights that keep changing
blue, color. Red, green.
Yeah. So they keep changing colors at different intervals. So you're kind of like confusing the child what is the right color.
Okay.
But in doing that, you're making the brain more active. Also too, I was talking about tactile from auditory. So tactile here, a child could be wanting to touch a certain cloth for several times. Some of them avoid certain pieces of clothes. Some of them could want to be in a blanket for a longer time. Others overly want hugs. Others may avoid the hugs. Even the tiptoeing, you see that some children, when they're tapping on certain places that are rough, they're either avoiding that texture, or if it's a place that has a lot of sand, they keep playing there. And some of them, it's a way that they feel their senses are being satisfied.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip. And of course, we are still on the diagnostic criteria of autism and how best to tell children with autism through simple actual learning measures. I've just learned that, I don't know if the diagnostic ones, for example, maybe the laboratory and other investigative ways of finding out autism in these children. But of course, let's go for a short, quick break. We shall return and discuss so much more important information about autism. See you shortly.
Good Day TV, transforming your life.
Bakola bulungi emirimu gyabwe miyonjo genuine estate yagala ettaka okutalinkayana yadde ennyombo genuine estate genuine estate.
Oyagala ennyumba ey'ekirooto kyo, factory oba z'abapangisa, faamu yakulimirako oba yakulundirako, kyogere tukikuwe n'ekyapa mu ngalo. Tulina ettaka mu bibuga n'ebweru w'ebibuga. Ffe wano ku Genuine Estates Uganda Limited tupima amataka n'okuba pulaani z'amayumba. Tusangibwa mu tawuni y'e Wakiso ku Genuine House, Hoima Road. Tufune ku 039393969 oba 0759955526. Tukolere wamu oganyulwa kinene.
In the neighborhood, near stagnant water and mosquito breeding sites, malaria lurks, always waiting to strike. But fear not, for here comes Mr. Vaxa, the ultimate protector against malaria. For years, malaria has been one of the biggest threats to children under 5, making them weak and even putting their lives at risk. But now, the government is introducing a new solution, the malaria vaccine. The malaria vaccine is now in the routine immunization schedule. The malaria vaccine is administered in 4 doses at 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, and 18 months. This vaccine will provide extra protection against severe malaria. And don't forget, routine immunization protects children from many deadly diseases. Every vaccine matters. Visit the nearest health facility for routine immunization services today. Mr. Vaxa, the malaria vaccine is free, safe, and ready to protect our children. Will you join the fight and complete all 4 doses? For more information, call the Ministry of Health on 0800 100 066. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Health.
Good Day TV, transforming your life.
Thank you so much for having Good Day Television, for watching us all the time. Most important is that we want you to know and learn the Word of God. The Word of God is power. The Word of God is living. The Word of God is fire. The Word of God is a double-edged sword. Yes, the Word of God is a living testimony to all of you watching us live at Gugude Television. And of course now here we are live at Makefu Gospel Church, located at Saprokagwa Road, just on those main traffic lights. Keep your left, keep your right, you'll see Gugude Television and the Makefu Gospel Church. Therefore, we are still talking about autism. We've looked into very important aspects about autism. I'm learning new things about this very important disease. And I'm just learning that these children need to be taken fragile and helped to learn every day and all the time. Personally, I've experienced 2 adults with autism. They're 18 and 20, and they are females actually. But they are good people. They sit down. They want to watch all the time and so much more. Mr. Phil has been with us here teaching us about autism as a senior occupational therapist. Now, you were telling us about the diagnostic criteria.
Yeah.
Is there more? You were still in the sensory something.
Yeah, we're still in
we
the
talked about tactile,
auditory,
visual. Visual.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I would like to clarify something about autism. Autism isn't a disease. Yeah, it is a condition. Yeah, when we say a disease, we mean there is management to a curative method. So malaria is a disease. Why? Because there is a tissued, there is a method towards a curative method.
So this one has no complete treatment?
No, it's a condition. So when we say it's a condition, meaning treatment is aimed at minimizing the effects that come
conservative.
Yeah, we say we are minimizing the effects that come up with a condition. For example, spina bifida or hydrocephalus is a condition. When we do a shunt in hydrocephalus at your hospital in Bali, the neurosurgeon is aiming at preventing the other effects that will come up if this is not managed. What you see in a bulged head, or what someone is saying a bigger head, it's because of the cerebrospinal fluid that has accumulated. So the pressures in the brain have penetrated through the sutures, and then there is a lot of the cerebrospinal fluid. Now when they handle that, we are enabling to see that how best will this child be able to sit in class, do things by himself. Yeah, so any condition outside there, it's meant, our main is mitigating the effects of the condition, or reducing the effects that come with it.
Okay, let's go ahead to the diagnostic criteria.
Yeah, still
from there, and then we shall talk about living with autistic children. What do parents must do? What they should avoid? What do communities should be aware about this condition?
Yeah, so still on the diagnostic criteria, the first one I mentioned was social communication and social interaction, and the second was repetitive patterns of behavior and restricted interest, and the third was talking about the sensory processing disorders. So still under sensory processing disorders, most parents report that my child has problems with brushing teeth, my child has problems with haircuts in the salon. Yeah, you find that the salon person is like, no, that family, I'm not accepting you. I need the money, but no. Why? Because the child on the autism spectrum will present with those difficulties in sensory processing. Now in haircuts, it's usually tactile sensation. Brushing teeth, we are still on oral sensitivity. So the other format that is usually common is about undressing, and the mother will tell you that when we are going home from school, the child wants to move without clothes. So all these are forms of tactile sensations. Some of them move on to the olfactory sensitivity. Olfactory, I mean different scents or smelling. A person could be there and the child knows his or her perfume, that even at a distance of just a few, like outside the door, and maybe the mother is reaching, the child can sense that my mother is around or my father is around. Why? Because they are overly sensitive to different scents and different smells around the environment. There are those that even smell the food before they eat, and there are those that keep following any scent that is nice to them. And it's not because they are behaving in a funny way, but they just have an olfactory sensitivity challenge. So when we look at the 4 factors in autism, it being a neurodevelopment condition, meaning it develops during the development of a child, specifically postnatal, that is 0 to 2 years, perinatal during the birth period, and then the prenatal, that is during the pregnancy period. So looking at these 3 phases, the different factors that bring about malfunctioning of the brain usually happen at that stage. And if you're to dive deep into them, you can really see that, oh, so this is a commonality in different children that are diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip. Now, of course, we want to congratulate the parents who are living with children with autism. They are, I may not say they are warriors, but I may say that, yes, living with autistic children is a little bit hectic. Yeah. Right. Please take us through some of the do's and the don'ts while having or living with children with autism.
Yeah, so in handling a child on the spectrum, one of the things that I emphasize is coming up with a routine. Yeah, we call it a 7 a.m. to a 7 p.m. routine. It means that when a child wakes up at 7 a.m. in the morning, there is a routine that we are doing toileting, we are doing brushing teeth, and then we are going to do dressing up. So these routines that are scheduled every morning, they adapt to what we call the neuroplasticity principle. Neuroplasticity is a term that we use to mean that the brain adapts to functioning basing on experience. It's common. In school, you find that there are those children that they may not be very intelligent, but because they are usually reading a certain concept, the child will eventually get to learn that concept. If you narrow the spectrum of learning, if you narrow the aspect of things that you're going to learn, and you do them repeatedly, you are going to obey neuroplasticity principle. So in the morning, the mother should know that what's the schedule for my child. There is toileting, brushing teeth, then dressing. After that, we are going outside, walking on the floor, walking on the grass, walking on the sand, all those things in the morning. After that, breakfast should be like at 10, so that the child gets to know that normal time for breakfast is at 10. Like I said before, they have a challenge with adjustment to routines. So if you brought tea at 9, you're simply telling the child, tea is at 9. Even at school, it must be at 9. They will throw tantrums at school. They begin throwing objects at school. Why? There is no tea at 9 a.m. So at 9 a.m., I advise things like shading. You can get an art book so that the child can be involved in any classroom activity. Say things like painting, following the tracing dots. All these things enable the child to develop the neuroplasticity principle, which in the long run, it's going to enable the child get some skills for personal development. Then at 1, that is when we are having lunch. And then before 1, actually, you must endeavor to see that the child involves in play. This could be outdoor in swings. This could be swimming. This could be play with others, with a small ball, with bubbles. All these things are creating a neuroplasticity principle that I have something to do at every particular hour. It may look easy on the child, on the side of a child, but this is very important that even a person that is an adult, if you don't have a routine, a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., you find that before you know it, you haven't completed the tasks of the day, you haven't accomplished the task that you're supposed to do. Why? Because small habits, usually, they build what we are doing. I would refer to a book called Atomic Habits. So in Atomic Habits, you find that anything that you do is usually accomplished by the daily energy that you keep putting in it. So you don't need to be very bright to be very good at something. By the consistency that you keep doing that very item or that very task, you find that you become very good because there is a level of neuroplasticity that keeps developing in you. After lunch at 2, we can have play and then snacks, and then I usually encourage a nap so that if a child is sleeping at that moment from around 2 to 3, that 1 hour is good. At 4, I expect the child to be running. There can be a trampoline, there can be sand, there can be throwing balls, but endeavor to see that the child is not playing alone or is engaged with some peers to see that the aspect of social communication and interaction is being built. Then at 5, I expect this child to be back to a classroom activity. That could be things like packing things like puzzles, packing play items, rescheduling things that they are going to do tomorrow. You tell them, tomorrow what are you beginning with? I know these children have challenges with communication, but I would emphasize, in handling children with autism, we are supposed to be more verbal than more gestural. What do I mean? Let's use more words than signs. I said again that these children, get so much in touch with the things that are presented several times to them. So in doing that, you find that the child will always learn that, oh, they cannot give me something except I try to say something. Some of them try to say mpa in case they are hungry, and those are very good opportune moments for enabling the child's verbal skills to grow. Then by 6 p.m. or 7, we can have a nap. Or if you, of course, I said there's no need for TV. TV and different electronics, these are things that cause them to develop a lot of interest in it, and eventually they won't involve in classroom activity. So that is the time that I usually schedule that in case there is need to watch, we can have 30 minutes between 5 to 5:30 for this child to have that relaxation in the mind. And then by 7 or 8, we're having supper, back to our routine before sleep. We must do toileting, we must do brushing, we must do dressing. Put the clothes in order, say like the pant, the short, the vest, and then the t-shirt. If these things are done in order, never at any point will this child put on the t-shirt minus the pant. It looks easy right now, but if you met a child at 17 years who has been living with autism, a child can leave the bathroom undressed to the sitting room. And this is not because the child is not able to dress, but because the routine has not been developed in this child. He or she knows, I always find my clothes with my mother. So even if the child has learned how to dress up, you would have caused an issue there. Why? Because you didn't teach the child the right way. But even in the bathroom, you encourage privacy and then the different steps in dressing. The child won't leave the bathroom. I will give you, for instance, I had a family and they reported about something of that sort. But this is a family that is grateful right now because you can't notice it. Why? Because the child has gotten a routine and he or she is moving on the right mode of treatment. And I can boldly say that the child has improved with therapy. Like I said, it is a condition, it improves with therapy.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip. Your experience is really worth it. And of course, I would like now to say, doesn't autism require a lot of money? Because I'm hearing things from therapy, you have to arrange clothes, and I'm just imagining people who are just, you know, money is scarce, you're trying to arrange clothes, you want to buy all those children plays, you want to have all those boards at home. Which schools now can these people be in and accommodate them, their schedules? You've given us the whole day plan. Oh my goodness, I'm just learning new things. Could you please highlight on a few?
Yeah, so there are schools that enroll these children, but especially with learning support providers. Yeah, so these are schools that I do an assessment before I can encourage a parent to take the other child. So myself, I do a thorough assessment with the child and I be like, this one will be fitting in such a school. But one of the things I would like to tell the public is that if you're to take a child with autism in any other school, the number of the children or the pupils in that class must be low, at least 20 below. However much it is a kindergarten, if the children are like 40 or 45, there is tendency of relaxity of the teacher. Why? Because these children, they learn things on their pace, very slow. And if we don't have a keen attention on them, they can be left out from the others. But if a therapist or a learning support provider has been assigned and the class is of a few people, like again I said, atomic habits, the smaller things we do on a daily. If today we shaded a certain flower, tomorrow we are shading a book, tomorrow we are shading a pencil. Those things, I usually give a scenario of a pot. If you have a pot and you're dropping very minimal drops of water, that pot is getting water on a daily. You're not going to drop those smaller drops of water on Monday, say January 10th, and then you reach April 10th, and that pot is the way you found it. Eventually, that pot will get full with water. Yes. Why? Because there was a continuous pouring in that. So it's the same aspect that happens here. This child, because on a daily, there is work that is being done, the brain records it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that a parent should consider if it comes to enrolling a child in school: the number of children, the learning support provider, and then an occupational therapist to assess the child's ADLs, feeding skills, dressing skills, bathing skills, and develop a proper routine of an individualized education plan for the child to be able to act and develop holistically.
Thank you so much, Mr. Philip Wanguja, a senior occupational therapist. And of course, we've learned a lot from your expertise, sir. Now, before we even plan to come to a conclusion of this program, we'd want to hear from experience. What is the actual happening, actually, here in Uganda when it comes to autism?
Yeah, in Uganda, the awareness is developing, but most especially, I should say, in Kampala, there are schools like Beautiful Minds Integrated School. It is in Tinda, ministries like Hope Speaks Ministries. There's Dawn Children's Center in Bukoto. There is Donor Children's Center. There are a lot of organizations that are coming in to see that they're helping these children with autism. And these different organizations and schools are trying to see that they meet exactly the needs of these children and to see that these children are really having a place and they have a societal role that they can play among the others. So basically in Uganda, we are coming up with different ways of seeing that these children are accommodated and then they can be important people in the community.
Excellent. Please call upon the government of Uganda. What is your call to the government in a bit autism, and what would you want the lawmakers, the policy, to handle in that regard?
Yeah, I would advise that the government should come up with more specialized schools that have a baseline of individualized education plans, meaning employ more of the speech therapists, occupational therapists. In such a dynamic, we shall have a rising number of appropriate treatments for these children. For instance, if you go to a hospital and they tell you, we don't have an occupational therapist, it's even hard for someone to say that I'm looking for an occupational therapist or a speech and language therapist. Why? Because in the hospitals, it's kind of like a culture. They need a nurse, they need a doctor. So autism, when a doctor sees a child with autism, he or she may diagnose, may not really diagnose, but may identify some symptoms. But doing the referrals, the parents sometimes they fail to find the exact person to manage. But if the government of Uganda came up with a strategy whereby we have a good number of occupational therapists in hospitals, in health centers, and speech therapists, in doing this, we can have a better way of coming up with specialized schools whereby we can have learning support educators, special needs educators, so that we see that these children can develop holistically and become important people in the environment. There is an example I usually give in Spain. One of the members of parliament has Down syndrome. This is because the government took on a role to see that these children are becoming important people and their education is customized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Phil. Please call upon the public and the communities and the viewers who are watching us tonight on Google Data Vision.
Yeah, so basically that about autism, and I remain Wangucha Philip, an occupational therapist.
Well, before you leave, I wanted you to call upon the public and the community, or from the government, advice to government. Please call upon the community, the viewers of Google Television about autism. What's your last remark for the viewer who is watching you on Google Television?
My last remarks for the viewer of Google TV this afternoon is that autism can improve with therapy. There is no suggestion that autism is a condition that comes from a curse. And from my perspective, I've grown in a family that a mother having two children, Philip and my sister, who had a speech impairment, I witnessed what we mean by a mother's grief when a child is not able to speak. If a child is not able to tell mommy, how are you, or good morning, it's not what someone can think outside there that you can take it for granted. But if you really have this at your home, you're going to understand new terms. This thing called occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, they will become easy. Why? Because it only affects you more if it is within your house. So what am I saying? Embrace children with autism, give them a place to stay, take them as other children in the society. Why? Because they are important in the society.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip, for being here with us and for sharing your expertise. Do you have any regards before we end the program?
Maybe my regards I have, I would like to thank the team of Hope Speaks Ministries. I thank my brother Magombe Vitaris, wherever he is watching us now, my mother, wherever she is right now. These have been supportive people to see that I become the therapist who is giving a smile, being a beacon of hope, and making a difference in children with autism all over the world. And then my regards also sent to Dr. Ashley, Johnny and friends, who has always endeavored to see that I become a better person in the Christian domain, to see that I not only work in the marketplace treating children, but I also bring in the love of Christ to see that these children have a belonging in the church and they can take on roles. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much for watching Good Television. You've been a good viewer since we began this program to a conclusion. But also would want to implore you to remain on our social media platforms on the YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and of course TikTok, so that you don't miss any program of this kind. And we have very many programs lined up of Good Television. I want to say thank you so much. Hope to see you next week, Wednesday. Let's reflect on autism, because every person is a candidate of getting it, and we have no candid treatment for this condition. I am Kamara Daniel. I hope to see you next Wednesday.